Good evening and welcome to Conversations with Crystal. I'm your hostess, Crystal, and this evening I have another fabulous guest for you. Please make welcome Ray Falzon. Hi Ray, how are you this evening?
Hey, Crystal. Everything's fine. I'm great, thanks.
That's good. You've been having a good day, mate?
Good day. It was a restful day.
Well, I like restful days myself,
Yeah,
so there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
Right. So, Ray, I've met you some years ago now at one of the jams, and I think it was at,
Granola, I think.
it might have been, but I also used to see you at Ballface Stag and
Oh, yeah.
also down at the Carousel at Rudy Hill, I think. Now, I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to you publicly
Oh,
because you helped me at the start learn all about blues. You showed me how the progressions were. You sat down with me and we watched some songs and listened to some songs, and you gave me a really good starting platform for it. And when I couldn't get a certain song, you were so patient, so patient with me. And every chance we got, which might have been every week or every second week, I said, oh, can we do that song, Ray, just to practice? And you said, absolutely. You never once were not accommodating, and I really want to thank you for that because that song is now the number one blues song that I do.
oh, really?
It is. So thank you.
Oh, that's all right, as long as we got something out of it.
Yeah, well, I certainly did. I, definitely got the love of, well, I had the love of blues beforehand, but the knowledge is what you helped me with. And that's a massive thing for one person to help another like that.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've sort of helped a lot of people in my life. It's just normal. You pass it on,
Yeah, pass it on and it comes back around too.
Mm, there you go.
Yeah. Now, Ray, what do you do with yourself these days? You still going to jams and playing music?
Well, since the COVID business, there's not many jams around. I've moved to the Northern Beaches, so I'm sort of out of the mainstream because a lot's happening out west and probably south, but not much happens in this area. I don't see myself starting a band again because, I'm nearly 70 now. And who wants to see an old man tuck away, So jams.
You'd be surprised.
Well, there's a lot of good guys out there, and they deserve it because they've put a lot into it.
Mm-hmm.
But where were we? Yeah,
So you like going to the jams?
the jam nights are fun. It's meeting the people there. They've all got an interesting history, and you can't tell by looking at them what their history is.
Yeah, that's true.
Recently, I went to a jam, and Charlie Ferrugia, Jim Finn's occasional bass player, was there. Well, Charlie was my next door neighbour when I was a kid growing up.
Oh, really?
And I used to hear his band practice, which was an early inspiration, two doors down. Every Sunday they would practice, and then running into him at the jam, it was just amazing.
Yeah. Did you get up and jam with him that first night? You saw him there, or?
Well, he's a bit older than me, so he was intimidating when I was young. But no, I came across him. He came to a jam night. And we recognised each other, and we just chatted. About 5 years before, he dated a friend. His girlfriend was a friend of a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I had room, and I go, oh, that's not Charlie Ferrugia from Wentworthville, They said, yeah. And so I heard he was still a musician. But then I ran into him and bang, that was good.
Yeah, definitely would have been. Now, Ray, going back a little way,
Mm.
what was your earliest inspiration, apart from hearing Charlie and his band
Oh, yeah,
practicing,
yeah, yeah.
or influence? Like, were your parents musicians? Did they play music a lot at home? How did music come into your life?
Well, I had big brothers and sisters, and they listened to the music of the time, which was all, what do you call them, crooner type music,
Mm-hmm.
sort of Frank Sinatra and,
Tony Bennett, maybe.
yeah, all those sort of people. And then the Beatles hit, but actually, around about early high school, the Monkees hit.
Yeah, right.
And I had a group of friends, 4 or 5 male friends, and we decided we'd mimic the Monkees.
Oh, really?
So we all got nominated our instruments. And then at, I think, 11 or 12 years old, I was in a shopping centre with my mother, and I pointed at a guitar in a guitar shop, and she bought it for me.
Oh, good on mum.
And it was $22. It was Suzuki, and the strings were about a foot off the fretboard.
Fretboard. Oh, yeah.
But I practiced, and I didn't want to bother with chords, so I just practiced melody and tunes, not knowing what music entails. So I just learnt melody to Old MacDonald Had a Farm and all those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then a bit later, this guy played in a band, our local dance band. And I walked up to the guitarist and I said, "Can you teach me for, I don't know, $10, I think it was."
Mm-hmm.
So I went to his place and he taught me chords, how to use chords, bar chords very quickly. So I got that. And then I learnt the importance of chords. But he also turned around and said, "Oh, you'll never be a guitarist. You just haven't got it in you." So anyway, it turns out he's married to my cousin.
Yep.
I think he still plays. I don't see him that often, but yeah.
Well, he'd be eating his words now, Ray.
Yeah. He sort of got out of music early and raised a family and did all that sort of stuff. I think he still tinkers. I don't sort of stay in touch with him that much.
Yeah.
Mm.
So he gave you some lessons for a while. How long was it?
One lesson.
One lesson, was it? Just one.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to another teacher, like somebody for a longer period of time, or did you
No.
get that little basic from him and then ran with it?
No, actually the other way around. I got a job at the local music shop teaching guitar.
Did you really? There you go.
And teaching taught me more than, I think I learnt more teaching than learning from.
Wow. And what was the guitar shop like? Music shop? Where was that?
That was in Wentworthville. The owner was an old school teacher from school who stopped teaching and bought them, set up a music shop.
Wow.
Mrs. Turner and her husband. They were great, and they employed me as a guitar teacher,
Mm-hmm.
early students. And they would ask ridiculous questions or want to know the latest tunes. And so I forced myself to learn through their questions.
Wow. That's a really interesting thing to do, isn't it? Really interesting to learn as you're teaching. That's really good, I think. Very interesting.
I've never had a one-on-one teacher teach me a guitar. Never, ever.
Wow. That's interesting too. It means you've got the ear for it, and having the ear is also very, very important.
Oh, my father played saxophone.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
He was in the marching band back in Malta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my brothers all played music. So at the same time, 2 other brothers took up music. Another brother took up bass. And, well, actually, they both took up bass. But they let it go and I stayed on.
Yep.
And I've got a little brother that I've influenced and he plays brilliantly. He's just absolutely fantastic.
Guitar, does he play guitar?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Now, do you play any other instruments other than guitar?
Well, I did have a violin for a while. I've got a piano behind me.
Oh, lovely.
I've got about 60 guitar or instruments.
Yeah, oh, that's fantastic. Do you sometimes open a case and go, oh, I forgot I had that?
Not really.
You got a better
It's,
memory than me then.
no, I shift into moods, like if I'm in a country and western mood, or if I see a clip of David Lindley, for example,
Hmm.
I'll go and pull the steel guitar out.
Oh, lovely.
And if I'm in the mood for Mark Knopfler, then they'll have 3 Stratocasters in the lounge room. If I'm in the mood for Bob Dylan and shit, I'll have Dobros everywhere and
Yeah, yeah.
sticks. So I flow from one to another.
That's good though, to have a lot of interest in a lot of different genres is really fantastic, I think.
Yeah, but it doesn't make you great at anything. So you can be a jack of all trades or and a master.
Master of none. I've heard that saying, but I think to be well rounded, especially if you were going to be writing music or just even for the love of it, to play different things, listening to all different groups and genres is what you need to do to see how songs are constructed and how music
Yeah,
flows.
yeah. Well, I'm a believer of a thing called first principles, and that is you understand what you're doing rather than learning things. Learning that's related to the times table.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that learn the rhythm of the timetable,
Mm-hmm.
the mathematical timetable, and there are those that know how it works, what the mechanics are of 3 times 7 and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know the mechanics of things and how it works, the first principles, you could do anything. But
Right.
if you learn parrot fashion, you're only capable of doing what you've learnt.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Very good point, Ray. Very, very good point.
So everything I do it from principle. And so out of that, from what I know of guitar, I can extend it to the Indian sitar, for instance,
Yeah, yeah.
or the 10 steel pedal steel guitar, which is 10 strings tuned in an E13th chord,
Mm-hmm.
or a dobro that's tuned in open D or open G.
Yeah.
If you understand the relationship of the notes and all that, then it's not hard to change from one instrument to
To
another.
another, yeah. When did you ever do any theory or teach yourself any theory?
Well,
Learn or
in teaching kids, I did teach the theory.
theory? Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Can I ask, because I don't think we covered it, how early on or what age do you think you were roughly when you first wanted to play guitar, when you pointed to that guitar and your mum bought it for you?
Well, before that, I think I was a 7-year-old or 8-year-old. My mum used to take me to go to bed early. She'd hit the hay at about 7 o'clock or 7:30.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to mimic playing guitar in bed, pretending I was Zorro serenading a
Oh,
lady on a balcony.
oh, that's beautiful.
And around that time, my cousin bought a guitar, one of those cheap things with a palm tree painted on the body.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing him play and learn, I was inspired. I wanted that.
Yeah, right.
And that led to my mother getting me a guitar. Plus,
Yeah.
my friends at school wanting to do monkeys' antics.
Yeah.
So then we eventually formed a band, George Turnbull and I, at school. And at that point, Black Sabbath broke out. So we were doing early Black Sabbath and Cream and Jimi Hendrix stuff. We were
Nice.
just a 3-piece. And from there, my cousin's band was called Solid Ash. They sort of came apart and reassembled, and I ended up in that mix.
Okay.
And then we realised it's not Solid Ash anymore, it's a different band. We did a few gigs of Solid Ash, and then we changed its name to Geezer.
Yeah, yeah.
And we did a few gigs as Geezer, but realised that none of us were singers.
Okay.
So we got a guy named Tony Sini.
You did.
And Tony was young, long-haired, loud. He looked like Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath, so he's really cool looking.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So anyway, by the way, we didn't name him Geezer after Geezer Butler. We
Already just had the name. Yeah.
we sat around and said, what are we going to call the group? Marty said Geezer, and we all said, okay, that's done.
How easy was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and did you... I'm sorry.
But as the band Geezer, we did lots and lots of gigs. We did probably about 5 gigs a week.
Wow.
Back in those days, there was music everywhere. This is early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
High schools had gigs. Every town hall seemed to have a dance or something. And every night they would hire 3 bands, and you would either be the warm-up band, the mainliner, which is in the middle, or the closing band. Mm-hmm. And we would get any of those 3 spots at different nights. So some nights we would be doing two in one night.
Yeah. You
play 1 hour at one place, and then you have to all drive to another place and do another hour. And we averaged about $100 per spot each.
Gee, I was just about to ask you that.
And today it's about the same money for the same thing. I haven't seen a change in good musician fees since the 70s.
No, listen, I was talking to a few other musicians and they said the money's the same from 40 or 50 years ago. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding.
No, that's true.
It's deplorable, really, isn't it?
Yeah. The most success I've had at making money has been in a duo, because you only split it 2 ways.
That's it. Yeah. So
Geezer, yeah. So we got a manager, a guy named Steve Rondo. He used to manage Hush.
Yes.
And they went on to a guy named Peter Ricks, who made them famous. Mm-hmm. So Steve had a bee in his bonnet about losing Hush. So he wanted to turn Geezer into the next big thing.
Oh.
So he set it up like a Gary Glitter band, 2 drummers, costumes and that. And Tony Senior and I did a few of those. I was out first and then he was out. It was all glam, and it totally changed because we started as a blues band.
Yeah, right.
And the manager, a bit like Brian Epstein for the Beatles, changed Geezer into the Geezer Rock and Roll Show.
Right.
But anyway, there was no ill feelings, so we all remained friends. And Geezer went on and released a record and did their thing. Mm-hmm. And I got married. I tried a few banders out and odds and ends, but I was about to get married and a bunch of personal things happened. I didn't get married. I graduated my electronics course and my sister got brain damage. So my life changed in one big bundle.
Yeah.
So I packed up and moved to Wollongong and got into television.
Yeah.
And pretty much for the last 40 years or so, I worked in television.
Right.
And in the mid-90s, I started my own company called RFX.
Uh-huh.
And, for 25 odd years, we made TV commercials. It was specialised in special effects for TV commercials.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's so interesting.
That was... the company still runs, but I've got no staff and I don't do edits anymore and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was one of the first paintbox artists in Australia, paintbox being an electronic thing that you can draw on.
Yeah.
This is back in 1982. And so I built a reputation in the TV and film industry as a special effects artist.
Oh, that's so cool.
And by the late 90s, I was pretty well known. That I started my own company and I just did the good bits on TV commercials. So they would transfer the film at one place, do the audio at another, come to me and do all the fancy dressing up. They weren't big budget commercials because there was houses like Animal Logic or Video Paintbrush Company that were Apocalypse. They were much bigger than me, but the dregs of the industry was good income.
Yeah, right.
So I sort of brought creative solutions to people that couldn't afford to go to the big boys.
Oh, that's really good.
And
that's really good.
That made me good money. So
yeah.
So I spent about 30 to 40 years in television. And in that time, I had a guitar in the office, a guitar in the car, guitars at home. So I would come across musicians in the course of my business. So people like Richard Clapton and the guys from Sherbet and In Excess would walk the hallways of Apocalypse or Digital Pictures where I worked because they were getting their film clips done.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And when we would have Christmas parties, they would be there. So you get to meet and mingle with a lot of good people.
Yeah.
Or even work on their clips and do things, and celebrities and all sorts of stuff. So that was an interesting period of my life.
It sounds very, very interesting. All those people you must have met. Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, when I was in Giza, we played with Sherbet one night.
Yeah.
And where was it? Taram, not place started with T down south. Anyway, it was a huge hall. 3,000 people were expected.
Wow.
And this is just a dance. And Sherbet had a wall of purple amplifiers. The whole one side of the building was all speakers.
Wow.
And us and the other support band were told to use their equipment. We couldn't take it.
Yeah.
So it's just turn up with guitars, plug into theirs. Their sound engineer took care of us. And then Sherbet would come on and do their big show.
Right.
And I can't remember if we were first or not. It doesn't matter. But before the show, I ran into Daryl Braithwaite. And
yeah.
They was just starting to be famous. And he was telling me that he was pointing out his Datsun 180B. And he says, oh, we've just been given these cars as a sponsorship. And everything was rushing. Fame and fortune was rushing to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was a bit taken aback. So we had a good little chat before the gig. And anyway, years and years later, I run into him again in the hallways of Digital Pictures. He's getting a clip edited. And I recall that night and he remembers it. And he was really nice and we had a good little chat. So, yeah, a lot of high regard for Daryl Braithwaite. He's a good bloke.
Yeah, oh, that's fabulous. That sounds really, really cool, actually. Really, really cool. So after Giza, did you go do another band after a while, or?
Well, like I said, I spent 30-odd years in television.
Yeah. So nothing in between that time?
No, we did television jams. So we would have Christmas parties. And there's a lot of musicians in the television industry. For instance, Les Gock used to be the guitarist in Hush, ran an audio music company, Sogzu it was called. So there was Les Gok, there was Mike McClellan, who had his own little agency. He was an acoustic folk guitarist in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So he would play my little guitar in the back room. Guys like Graham Bond, who was Auntie Jack.
Yeah.
People like that. And if you've got a guitar in the room, someone will pick it up and doodle and play.
Absolutely.
So that was fun. And when I started RFX, we were starting to do not song clips, but ads for records.
Okay, yeah.
Because record companies were stingy with their budgets, they would go to the cheapest place as possible. So we had record company work coming out of our ears.
Fantastic.
And so occasionally they would come down to the place and supervise the editing or whatever off the commercial. And that was a fun way to meet people as well.
Yeah. That sounds, you've lived such an I think that's an exciting life, Ray.
It's the tip of the iceberg.
The tip of the iceberg. Well, I like that. I think we could talk at length on that somehow.
Yeah.
So when did you start picking up your guitar like you did at the jam? So after you were doing that body of work?
Then I ran into or came across Sean McCarthy.
Yeah.
I hadn't been in a band, and I got word he's after a guitarist. His guitarist just left him in the lurch or something like that. So I went and saw his band at the Lansdowne Hotel. I worked out in my head you could get away with pentatonics on this music. And so he asked me to play on his next gig. So without a rehearsal, I went to his next gig and plugged in and played.
Excellent.
All I needed to know was what key they were in, and off we went. And I channeled my Jimmy Page, Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, mine.
Rock God.
Yeah. You just channel that and become that person.
Yeah.
And I was able to do it, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And did you do any more with Sean, or was that
Well, he introduced me to the jam at Parramatta.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go and watch Jim Finn, but I never participated at where was it? Leichhardt.
Yeah.
I always thought they were musicians beyond my capability, the guys at the Leichhardt Jam.
Right.
But Sean took me to Parramatta to a place, I forgot the name of the place. But anyway, it was a fantastic jam that ran for a while, and just about all the jammers went there.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of met everyone there. And I didn't sing at that stage. I only played guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I played guitar for Sean in all these spots. And that was great. That was really good.
Yeah.
And that sort of got me into jam nights. But then one night at the Carousel Jam, there weren't any singers. There was one or two people that sang.
Mm-hmm.
So Al Britton said, Falzon, get up there and sing.
That's Al.
And I did, and from there on I became a singing jammer.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at it, but at least I fill a spot, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, you know what? I don't think it necessarily matters whether you're good at it or not. If you're enjoying what you're doing and the audience is enjoying what you're doing, what does it matter?
It doesn't matter. There are good and bad at all the jams.
Yep.
The ones that record are the ones that think they're above everyone else.
Yeah, right.
But everyone else seems to be all right with everyone else's music.
Yeah. So have you gone on to record your own self-singing and playing, or just instrumental?
I wanted to record an album. Oh, after Sean, I started a duo called Shantra.
Mm-hmm.
That was joining up Chantel and Ray to
Yep.
create Shantra. And we did all right for a while. We wrote about 30 songs. We recorded an album and an EP.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I thought, oh shit, I've got a lot of songs in me, so I just churned out a dozen or so songs.
Nice.
And then I went around the songwriter circuit. And on the songwriter circuit, you get 40 minutes.
Right.
And plus $50, I think. And they only book 3 people a night, and it's by appointment. And there used to be the Songwriting Society, and the leaders of that went to Nashville to live.
Oh.
Zelda and Powell. They formed like an Australian songwriting club type thing.
Yeah.
And being to write fantastic songs and send them to Nashville for potential usage by international artists.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Nashville now, are living there. They've been living there the last 10 years. So I could potentially send them my songs and they will present them for me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that option.
That's very exciting.
Well, yeah. But, songwriting is great because it's a craft as opposed to performance, which is an ability and you not being nervous in front of people and stuff like that. Songwriting, you could be in a room and you could change things whenever you want. There's no time constrictions and performance anxiety and stuff like that.
That's right, yeah.
And plus, if you know the creative process, because I studied mind control and what's that thing? Alternative thinking methods.
Oh, I remember us having a conversation about that. Yeah. I'd forgotten about that.
Because I studied a lot of that offbeat stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of am good with the creative process. It served me well in television because I would get clients that wanted X, Y, Z, and we had to produce it there and then.
Oy, yeah.
At $500 an hour that they were paying, and you had to create whatever they were saying in their minds.
Yeah, right.
There and then. And it's not hard to transfer that process to music. So a lot of the last music things I was involved in, I treated it like it was a commercial production for someone else.
Okay.
So it's like someone says, write me a song about your childhood or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I would take that and then use the creative process of writing all the things you want to put in the song, all the list of things, mashing things together. The creative process is more of taking 2 opposite things, smashing them together in a poetic way that illustrates a point for you.
Yeah, that's it. Very interesting. I like your way of thinking. It's very deep.
Anyway, so expanding your mind and knowing how things work just helps you with things in life in general, cracking the code of what to do, what to not to do in any situation.
Yeah.
So, and also transferring that what I learned in video to music to home decoration or whatever. It's all a process. There are secrets to. They're not really secrets, but there are things you can do to improve your life that some people can't be bothered with, but
Yeah.
is no real bother.
And actually, it is called The Secret. That is. Yeah, it is.
Well, funny, I saw the show The Secret, and it was very much like the silver mind control method.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is they didn't teach the real part of it. And a lot of these self-help books don't teach the real secret, which is at the end of self-programming to forget about it and go on with your life.
Okay.
You need to forget about it for it to start happening, because if you're still thinking about it, you haven't stopped the creation process. Yeah.
Right.
You're still in programming mode. You need to get out of programming mode and get on with your life to create the journey for things to happen.
That's right.
And
You're 100% right, yes.
And a lot of people don't move on and forget about it. They cling on to things and stuff doesn't happen for them.
Yes. Very good point. Very, very good point. Okay. Yeah, so you did your with Chandra, the duo. Did you do any other duos, or that was kind of you did?
I did. There was a girl named Sharon, and we had a band called Cover Note. It was disgustingly simple. She had backing tracks for everything.
Yep.
So all I had to do was noodle lead guitar, and she sang pretty well.
Yep.
And played harmonica.
Oh.
But as we went on, she had a lot of bookings in clubs, so we made good money.
Yeah.
But as we went on, we faded out the backing tracks and started playing actual live. So that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But she broke her leg in an accident and stopped the duo. And then what else did I do? I went to Germany and played in the Sachsenhausen area in Frankfurt. There's some blues musicians. There's a guy, Matthias Baumgart. He's the king of blues in Frankfurt. And he gave me a couple of shots around there. And the thing with Europe is a lot of the musicians are graduates of classical music.
Yes.
And music over there is not a throwaway thing. You learn it properly.
You're right. Yeah.
Because of Mozart and their history of music, you know what I mean? In European countries, it's taken very seriously, like art is.
Yep.
And you learn it properly. None of this just learn the chords and fake it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the musicians I played with and saw over there were incredible. But they had accents, so they would sing like, I went down to the crossroads.
Yeah.
So hearing a Western or a non-European voice was helpful there.
Yeah.
But it was a great place, great people, and I learnt a lot there. That was great for a whirlwind do-it-yourself tour. It was good.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. That's really cool. Have you got a funny story for me, Ray, that might have happened at a gig with Geezer or sometime on the road or when you're over in Germany, or any funny story from anywhere?
Funny story. Back in the Geezer days, we were booked at Paddington Town Hall for a special gig, and AC/DC were on with us.
Oh, fair income.
Now, I've got a history with AC/DC. Malcolm Young and I shared a girlfriend at one point.
Oh, really?
And I heard that my girlfriend was with Malcolm one night, and so let's face it, I knew 4 or 5 groupies that lived together. They were great girls. I shouldn't call them groupies, but they knew a lot of bands.
Yep.
And so Malcolm played in a band called Velvet Underground.
Yes. Yep.
And they would come around to the house, you know. Anyway, one particular night I grabbed Malcolm by the shoulders, dragged him in the bedroom, and Liz thought, my girlfriend thought I was going to have a punch out, but Malcolm was thicker and stockier than me,
Yeah.
and a bit older, so I wasn't going to pick a fight. So I sat him down. I said, "Teach me that guitar riff you play during T-Rex, Get It On." And he did. He taught me a couple of guitar riffs.
Uh-huh.
And he taught me a chugging type thing, which was to, if you're playing an E chord, to drop the G sharp on the third string.
Mm-hmm.
A really good chopping riff and all that. So anyway, they were happy I didn't have a punch up. But I wanted them to think that, so that was a bit funny.
Yeah.
Malcolm didn't know any better. Another time with Sean, we were in Bowral doing a gig, and it was a bikie get-together. I don't know what they call it, but different gangs from different areas all got together and had a big hullabaloo.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the band on that night. And halfway through the night, some local tries to chat up one of the bikie girls.
Oh, trouble.
20 bikies pick him up, carry him over their head, and just hurl him in the street.
Oh, dear. What a mistake.
So on that night, I had a Stratocaster and a Gibson SG. And every time I go for the Stratocaster, they go, "Angus guitar, Angus guitar."
His guitar.
So I had to play the SG all night.
Right.
Because it was Angus's guitar.
Yeah, right. And probably as heavy as hell.
No. I had a 61 reissue. They're light as a feather.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was pretty funny though.
That's good.
There's another one. It wasn't a band related thing. I was at the Musicians Union, and they have these, musical talks about unions and fees and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at the Musicians Union one night, and during the tea break, I meet this big, massive black guy, and he's talking to me, and here's me assuming all black people know each other. So I go, "Do you know Craig Calhoun?" He goes, "I am Craig Calhoun." Yeah, fuck, Craig was a friend of mine introduced me to Craig some years back, and he played a Christmas party of mine. Like I said, we had jam Christmas parties.
Mm-hmm.
And one year I hired Craig Calhoun. He's an American bass player who runs a band called the Brothers of Oz, and their music is absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he played one night, and I jammed. And then I hadn't seen him until this particular night. So I go, "Oh, do you know Craig Calhoun? He's a good friend of mine." And he says, "I am Craig Calhoun." Anyway,
Oh, dear. How did you feel?
Oh, well, it's small for a little bit, but he's a nice bloke. He saw the funny side.
Oh, I'd say he would. That's for
And
sure.
and another one, it's not a funny story so much as an interesting one is I had a good friend, Wayne Goodwin, who used to be the violinist for Emmylou Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd won a gold record playing with Graham Nash on, I can't remember the album, but the gold record hung in my office anyway.
Oh, wow.
Wayne was down on his luck for a while, so I let him teach music out of my RFX offices, and occasionally he'd sleep there, so that's good. Anyway, Wayne got a cancer, and he got very ill and was in hospital getting leukemia. And then Crosby, Stills, Nash came to Australia. Graham Nash caught a taxi to the Royal North Shore, picked up Wayne Goodwin, who was the violinist on his album, took him to the Crosby, Stills, Nash album, Nash concert, and gave him a front row seat, and then brought him back. And
Oh, how nice.
none of the nurses knew who he was.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's just a nice story. Graham Nash, good bloke.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah,
Now, I want to go on to you've sent me an MP3
yeah.
of a beautiful, beautiful acoustic instrumental. Would
Oh,
you
right.
like Would you like to tell me a little bit about that, or tell the listeners a little bit about that, Ray?
The writing, or
Well, who it's for?
well, yeah. I wrote it the day my mother died. I just sort of whipped it up in more or less an afternoon.
Yep.
Um, but it's a culmination of all the finger picking. Like in the years of television that I spent 30 odd years, I actually learnt classical guitar, finger picking, Mel Travis style, uh,
Mm-hmm.
dobro slide guitar, Indian vina. I learnt a lot of these instruments rather than performing.
Mm-hmm.
So Ellen was a culmination of all that. So it's just an acoustic finger bomb.
Well, I have listened to it and I think it's absolutely beautiful. What we might do is listen to it now.
Okay.
Well, Ray, I think that that's just beautiful, and the name of that track is Ellen.
Mm,
I think that that's just absolutely beautiful. Well
yeah,
done. Well done.
I named it after my mother.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, one of the last commercials I did with Alan Johnson from Mojo, Alan wrote all those songs like Good on Your Mum, Tip Top's the One, and You Ought to Be Congratulated.
Yep.
I used the middle section of Ellen for one of these TV commercials.
Oh, wow.
He was cutting a commercial for bowel cancer at my place, and he forgot to write a music track. And so I said, oh, I've got a bit of music. So I pulled out a classical guitar, plugged it in, played this bit of music, the middle bit of Ellen, and that became the backing track for the commercial.
Oh, that is fantastic. As I said, it's just absolutely beautiful. I love how you play. So very, very, very well done on that. Now, do you still have your dobros there?
Yeah, I got a few Dobros. I'm actually planning to sell a stack of guitars because I don't need them anymore.
Okay.
But I got a lot of weird things. I got two Indian Venas, a Moog guitar, a fairy axe, about 4 or 5 Dobro type things,
Mm-hmm.
pedal steel, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of acoustics. I got a few Martins. I don't recommend Martin guitar for Australian performers. I think Australians should get Maton or Cole Clark.
Yeah, I do too. Yep.
Not because of patriotism, but Martin guitars fall apart. They're
Oh,
just
do they really?
they're made of horse glue or whatever, and they fall apart. And to get them fixed is mega expensive. But
Wow.
buy an Australian. If it falls apart, you fix it locally.
Mm.
So I've had two Martins fall apart, and I'm not a big fan of their gluing process.
Right.
Um, but anyway, yeah. And like I said, the flavour of the lounge room changes with what mood I'm in that week.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ray, if somebody's interested in buying a guitar, how could they contact you to purchase?
I'll usually announce what I'm selling because I've got to prepare them, do the setups and that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I forgot to say, 10 or so years ago, I was more interested in the guitars than being a musician.
Mm-hmm.
And I envisaged retiring, having a second-hand guitar shop.
Oh,
And so that's why I collected 60-odd guitars.
yeah, right.
So I bought ones that would be worth reselling, Gibsons and Fenders and Rickenbacker or Gretsch.
Yep.
And I've still got most of them, but the second-hand guitar shop fell out the window and I've still got the guitars.
Ah, you know what? Never too late. Never too
uh,
late.
yeah, so I don't need them all. So I'm selling here and there Gretches and this and that. I plan to keep a few Gibson semis. What else? Maybe 1 or 2 Fenders. I've still got a guitar I've had for 50 years.
Oh,
So
wow.
a Fender Telecaster that I've had for a good 50 years. So that I'm not allowed to get rid of that guitar. All the kids learnt to play guitar on it.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Excellent. So, where would you announce that you're going to sell?
Oh, well, probably on YouTube itself, maybe AJ's page or uh, eBay, maybe.
Yeah, right. So it'd be AJ's Emporium, is it?
Yeah, or the eBay, the Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
That's it. Now, one more thing before you go.
yeah.
I know and I've seen that you are an extremely talented artist.
I wouldn't say extremely, but yeah.
You will. Look, just was it yesterday or the day before you put up a watercolor of Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah.
And you've done so many, and I just think they're beautiful. I hope that you are selling them or taking, I don't know, request isn't the right word I'm looking for.
Well, I've been a broadcast designer for a good 30 or more years,
Mm,
and I've had to draw storyboards and sketches to win jobs and teach the crew what they had to do. So most jobs I've been the director, and the director is the one that draws the storyboards and has the visuals.
mm-hmm.
And since I'm not doing television anymore and that creative sort of work, this is just, for me, a form of storyboarding.
Yeah. Well, I see them every time you put something up, and I just think, how fantastic is that? So, what is the name of your Facebook page where everybody can see your work?
Well, there's caricatures by Fowls for the caricature work.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, just my profile. It's in the My Art folder.
On Ray Falzon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That is excellent. All right, Ray. Well, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I've thoroughly enjoyed our talk, and I look forward to seeing you around the traps, as they say.
Yeah, pleasure. Yeah, it's always good to see you and everyone else. It's always good.
It is. All right. Thank you, Ray. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was the very talented Ray Falzon. You have been listening to Conversations with Crystal. I am your hostess, Crystal. Please join me next week when we'll have another fabulous guest. Until then, please stay safe, stay happy, stay cool, stay awesome. Most of all, please stay listening to this channel. Good night.